I think it's definitely the biggest crisis in Eurovision's history. It's definitely a watershed.
It's no ways a crisis. We've got 35 members or so going to join us next year. I understand the 4 or 5 who might not come. That's their choice.
We don't want to participate at the Eurovision Song Contest if Israel is competing as well.
Is Eurovision over? Is it existential? I don't know.
Eurovision is facing the biggest boycott in its history over the participation of Israel next year. Philip Oltermann has been writing about this for us. Thanks for being with us, Philip. What's happened and what are the 4 countries that have pulled out?
So yesterday there was a big meeting, a general assembly of the Union of Broadcasters who organise Eurovision. The meeting was in Geneva. And some countries had pushed for a vote to be held on whether Israel can take part next year because of the war in Gaza. That vote wasn't held. And in reaction to that non-vote, 4 countries have announced that they will boycott the event. They won't be broadcasting it and they won't be taking part. Those countries are Spain, the Netherlands, Ireland and Slovenia.
Yeah, and we've had some pretty punchy statements from them. Spain's culture minister says you can't whitewash Israel given the genocide in Gaza. Ireland and the Netherlands say it would be unconscionable to take part given the situation in Gaza. I mean, the reality is this has dogged and torn apart Eurovision for the last 2 years, hasn't it? Last year's song contest was also mired in controversy, but this is by far the biggest number of countries that are boycotting. Are we expecting any more countries to pull out? And if so, who are we watching?
There will certainly be a huge amount of pressure in some countries. I think especially in the Nordics and Scandinavia. Iceland was one of the countries that has previously said they were considering a boycott. They're having a meeting next Wednesday where they will decide. Belgium is another country that has previously, I think, signaled that they are sort of boycott willing. And I think, in most countries there will be a huge amount of pressure on those broadcasters. There may also be pressure on the artists who are selected sometimes by a public contest to compete or not to compete. So I don't think this is the end yet. We may still see a couple more countries who won't be there next year.
Yeah, I mean, the way this played out in the UK last year, the UK's choice, Ollie Alexander, the pop star, faced enormous pressure to resign. There were multiple open letters, pressure on him to pull out of the competition. That's likely to play out again, isn't it? Regardless of who you might be representing. But the UK, the BBC is one of the broadcasters that's decided that they will be going ahead with broadcasting Eurovision next year. That again is likely to be controversial, isn't it?
I think so. I mean, I think there will be a huge amount of pressure on whichever artist is selected. The fact that in the UK that's sort of done behind the selection process behind closed doors may make that even harder for individual artists because they don't get to really express themselves on the stage beforehand or announce themselves. And I think we'll have a similar controversy in each country, to be honest. I mean, I think there are some countries like Germany, Austria, the hosting country to an extent, where there is a pressure to turn up. And if Israel had been kicked out, there would have been pressure to step out and not go to Eurovision next year in solidarity. So the dynamics are slightly different in some countries. But I think this will be a really tricky concert, or if we call it that, music event next year. And it is the 70th anniversary of Eurovision.
Yeah, it's a very important anniversary, and it is just a sort of mind-bogglingly massive TV event, isn't it? It's watched by over 100 million people, 160 million people around the world. A lot of this does date back to 2022, though, when, in the wake of Russia's invasion of Ukraine in February, Russia was almost immediately banned from taking part in Eurovision. A number of the countries that are saying they're going to boycott next year's competition have made comparisons with that, not least because they're saying Israel is an aggressor in the way that Russia was. That's really playing into all of this, and also, of course, showing solidarity with the people of Gaza.
Yeah, I mean, it's a tricky argument, and I think there are some say it isn't easy to draw that comparison. We should remember that Eurovision is not a national contest. It's a contest between broadcasters.
Yeah.
And that meant the sanctions against Russia weren't the sanctions against Russia. They were sanctions against Russia's public broadcaster for having broadcast state propaganda. So the question is can the Israeli broadcaster, is it sort of churning out state propaganda to the same degree, or is it also holding the Israeli state to account? You could say that's a different situation in Israel perhaps than it was with Russia.
Yeah, it's a really interesting point because Cannes has a very interesting relationship with the Israeli government, isn't it? It's been critical of Netanyahu and his cabinet, and the two have sort of been at loggerheads for some time now. So that relationship isn't clear cut in the way that it was with Russia, right?
I think so. At the same time, the president of Israel has been very quick to announce how thrilled they are that they're contributing. So I think it's a hugely important symbolic event for the state as well. So there is it holds a political function for the state of Israel. That's the tricky thing with Eurovision. It's political and it's not. It was never political by design. It sort of gained this huge political symbolic status by accident almost over the years.
Yeah, and much of that's about tactical public voting, isn't it? About political campaigns that are being run to make sure that certain countries get a certain amount of votes. And it's notable that Israel last year came second in the competition, which was concerning to a number of other broadcasters, wasn't it?
Yeah, and this is the sort of the compromise that the EBU, the European Broadcasting Union, presented to the ones who were calling for boycott. They said we'll change the voting rules and we'll ensure that this sort of thing doesn't happen again. We'll discourage states or non-state actors basically doing undue promotion, over-promoting their artists, and we'll change the voting rules slightly. That was meant to be the sort of fig leaf that would allow the individual national broadcasters to retreat from a boycott. But it doesn't seem to have worked with the sort of the big four that are now saying they won't take part.
So the EBU, Eurovision's organisers, have always said, this is about unity. This was set up after the Second World War to bring Europe together. But the reality is the divisions are now very, very stark and very serious. How big a crisis is this for the EBU and the competition more broadly?
I mean, I think it's definitely the biggest crisis in Eurovision's history. It's definitely a watershed. I mean, we're looking at Spain, one of the sort of big four financial contributors. We're looking at Ireland. No country apart from Sweden has won this contest as many times. And we're looking at the Netherlands, which is a founding member, and Slovenia, sort of symbolic of the sort of eastward expansion of the European Union. So it's a big deal. And we don't know whether, they won't be there next year, but the contract doesn't look like it will resolve itself very suddenly. So this could be the setup for years to come. At the same time, is Eurovision over? Is it existential? I don't know. I mean, Eurovision isn't the United Nations. It doesn't really have that many intrinsic values. It's a sort of broadcasting experiment that's sort of become political because people have brought political values to it. So my personal view is that in a way, it's a fairly neutral vehicle and you can re-inject it with politics and meaning in the future. Again, something like this, countries taking a stand, may well contribute to becoming more credible when they rejoin.
But as you say, I mean, this current policy from the EBU, Eurovision's organisers, is not going to hold them just saying, there are no politics at play. This is all about the unity, given how febrile things are and given that this isn't going anywhere. But I just wonder, before we let you go, Philip, I mean, you're looking into the sort of history of boycotts in Eurovision. It's an interesting history, isn't it? This is the biggest, but there have certainly been political boycotts before.
Yeah, I mean, you could say there have been boycotts, has been sort of part of the Eurovision's culture from the beginning. Armenia and Azerbaijan have refused to share a stage. Turkey and Greece have refused to share a stage. And the first sort of boycott call in Eurovision's history was ironically directed at Spain, which is now one of the boycotters. That was in 1964, I think. When the contest was held in Denmark, and a young left-wing activist, stormed the stage and said boycott Franco and Salazar, the So it was protesting against Spain and Portugal being allowed to take part, even though they were run by military dictatorships at the time. You could say that makes Spain's stance hypocritical, or you could say that makes them perhaps more aware of what Eurovision is really about than all the others.
Well, it's certainly a debate that's going to be thrashed out in the next few months and weeks. Philip, thanks so much.
Thank you.